Nick Marks, who's an associate professor of film and media studies at the Department of Communication Studies at Colorado State University. He co-wrote the book That's Not Funny: How the Right Makes Comedy Work for Them, which is out now. Everybody, please welcome Nick Marks.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, thank you so much for being here. I wanted to ask you, I'm not envious of the research that you had to do to write about right-wing comedy, but how many episodes of Greg Gutfeld did you have to watch?
Yeah.
Were you actively rewriting the jokes as you watched it?
Well, first, calling them jokes is being very generous. Had to slog through quite a few episodes of Greg Gutfeld, of the Joe Rogan Experience, of the Tim Allen sitcom Last Man Standing. We outline a whole universe of right-wing comedy ranging from like super libertarian, bro heavy humor that you might hear on something like Rogan to stuff that dads like, right? The good old-fashioned sitcom you turn on after checking in on your rental property and golfing 9 holes with your fellow Garys. It was not enjoyable. But our point is to get our fellow liberals and leftists to get past that initial taste-based reaction of, that's not funny, that's not comedy, that's an oxymoron, right? Something I hear a lot when I describe the book to people. And look at what it's doing politically. Look at how it's bonding together groups of especially like-minded young men who go on to become right-wing activists, who go on to show up at Turning Points USA and laugh at Ted Cruz's jokes that his pronouns are kiss my ass or whatever line he's trotting out.
Were you able to act?
We need to be even better comedians now. We need to be even better and go on their shows and crush them. Right? That's what you're saying,
to
right?
debates.
That's what you're saying? We need to write better jokes?
There is something to that. I mean, I will maintain that, the liberals in the media universe, ranging from the mainstream Colberts to the furthest left that you can go, are much funnier and are purely more skilled comedians. But I think, especially in the Trump years, a certain kind of like self-censoriousness crept into liberal comedy, where it was like, we don't want to take any chances. We don't want to offend too much because it's so bleak out there. So we want comedy to make us feel good. We want to watch stuff that's uplifting, that's morally fulfilling, and that's a very understandable impulse. But as we've kind of vacated that edgy space, that's where the sort of edgelord trolling, fascist adjacent right-wing people creep in and claim some of that kind of, boundary pushing comedy that we used to hold.
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, I think that first, I want to put that aside for a second and say that what I got, what I'm getting, that your point of the book is that, we've on this show like made fun of Greg Gutfeld and, Rogan, and you're basically saying like, it's not enough to just say they're bad at comedy, because they're shit comics. It's fine. But like they still have massive audiences. I know Gutfeld, is getting better ratings, and you've said, charted that than even Colbert has gotten. But have you tracked a pipeline, and did you speak to people who straight up did go to the Turning Points conference or have been funneled from maybe some of the fringes or, I don't know, a podcast into actual like right-wing activism? Or is that your assumption?
So the answer to that question is yes, but in a very kind of elemental form. We're making these connections by watching this stuff and putting the pieces together based on who guests on whoever shows, the advertisers they have in common, the ratings information that's published publicly. So for instance, Greg Gutfeld had a show on Fox News called Red Eye. That's the precursor to his current show. A longtime guest on that show was Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes, who's another figure we write about in the book, who fancies himself to be funny and ironic and joking in his sort of hateful acts. Rogan has had just about anybody you can point to in the book on or has communicated with on Twitter. So it's not just that, your dad is watching Gutfeld, young bros are watching Rogan, and these two silos don't really talk to one another, it's very easy to go from one of these kind of big tent shows like Gutfeld and find out, oh, Gavin McInnes is associated with this. I'll check out what he's about.
Right.
Or the Legion of Skanks are guests on Rogan's podcast. I'll check out their podcast. So that universe is very good about moving you from one right-wing comedy style to another and keeping you in that tent ideologically.
Yeah. One thing, you mentioned Legion of Skanks, and I hesitate to even say their names because apparently when you say it 3 times, you get, bum rushed by trolls.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you've also been on the receiving end of that. But, they say their tagline is, we say fucked up shit to make people laugh, relax their jokes. And actually my husband did stumble on one of their live shows, and they were singing the white nationalist song from American History X as a joke, ostensibly, correct? Yeah. And I don't listen, so I cannot say that it definitely is a joke, how or it's not, that they're serious, that they're white nationalists. I'm not saying that. However, I've always said that right wingers don't get irony, but in fact, I think that's wrong. I think that they are really into ironic racism to the point, and some of them get funneled into no real racism, like Gavin McInnes, and some of them are just like, no, I want to say these slurs because you're not supposed to say them, and my brain is that of a 13-year-old boy, and I think it's funny, and I'm like an online commenter perpetually. So, and I think because, and it's not even the left, but it's because general decency has told us, hey, don't say racial slurs. This is quite literally reactionary comedy that is responding to, call it a PC culture, call it just being respectful. That I think you're right, that some comics have let go because they want to sort of please everyone and have, sort of comedy that isn't edgy or is just sort of doesn't, I'm not saying that's why that's why nobody says the N-word, but I agree that there is a level of getting worried that you're not saying the right thing. And if the two options, I've always said this, is the difference between being perfect and saying whatever you want, most people will take the say whatever you want avenue. Now, the reality is, and this is not even a question, but the reality is, as a comic, and Jessica, you know this, is that there's crazy funny people who fall into neither of those camps. Neither fucking, I'm saying this just to say it because I'm a, edgelord comic, nor I'm just a perfect, vestige and emblem of, whatever social justice commentary comedy that the lines are much less neat than that. And a lot of comics that no one's ever heard about are really wonderful in that middle space. Anyway, I'll shut up.
I have some thoughts to how Trump getting elected kind of changed a lot of feelings on comedy, which is one is it has to be funny, and if it is too just fucked and shitty, sorry, I'm cussing so much on this podcast, but it's just in comedy we want to take something and we want to flip it and make it interesting and funny and weird, but it's just the whole Trump thing, it's so trashy and all of it is so you just want to be like Jerry. It's I feel above it. I just don't think it's funny or interesting to be fighting this. And now I'm telling jokes on the left. It's I want my comedy to be we're humans. Isn't this the human experience? And it's you can tell from listening to my comedy. Yes, I'd like an abortion now, but it's not, I don't know. I don't want it to be like this. And then the comics on the left and the comics on the right, and who's winning. And it's kind of what I've been saying this whole podcast about all the politics is it just all feels like a facade to me at this point of we're on this team and we're going to win, and we're on this team and we're going to win. But it's we're just propping up
right.
Yeah. It's part of the bigger issue I think you're pointing to, Jessica, is the because our politics are so enfeebled and they don't actually do anything for us, folks, especially younger folks, turn hard into culture and trying to get that right and fight all our battles on that front and make sure that the comedy that I like is the good and pure stuff that supports progressive causes, and the comedy that I hate is Joe Rogan or whoever else. And in the meantime, there's no money to be made in the center. And I don't mean that ideologically, but comedy pushes us to extremes now, necessarily economically, right? Like you have to either sort of self-identify as one thing or another, or else you're not going to get the rush of fans that people at the extremes do, right?
I would be in that category, the no money category, by the way.
No, I think, but I mean, this is the other, you are obviously in media studies, and you talk about the siloing of media. And look, the Bitchuation Room is a part of that siloing. We're in the, that mainstream space of left comedy, obscure streamer. no. But in that way, like, I forgot what my point was. That really, and I think someone in the chat is talking about this. These are all products of also the algorithm, which we know absolutely lifts up not shows like this, but shows where people are kind of like saying the craziest thing they can say just to say it. I mean, that's straight up how right-wing grifters become famous. Tommy Laren's motto is, "You don't have to agree with me, but with my right to say it." Like that kind of like brainless type of mush,
Yeah.
Yeah, in a previous media era, as recent as 20, 30 years ago, there were bigger audiences watching the same thing. Now that we've accelerated most of our media content into hyper-fragmented niches so that only small clusters of people like us are watching the same thing that the algorithm produces and delivers to us, we're much less likely to be exposed to ideas, to culture outside of that pre-programmed sort of cultural niche. So what you get is this kind of feedback loop, right? You get the culture, the politics, the news that already affirms what you think and what you find to be good. So I think many liberals kind of took for granted that comedy was liberal because Jon Stewart is the person on The Daily Show and Tina Fey's on SNL making fun of Sarah Palin. But all the while, there's this media ecosystem being built up on the right, mostly unseen to to those of us on the left, that yes is populated by Tommy Laren and Greg Gutfeld and Joe Rogan, and has this pseudo intellectual sheen from folks like Jordan Peterson and others. So comedy is the sort of recruitment mechanism that is bringing people who are coming of age in their media consumption into that right-wing tent where most of us had exposure to it in a previous era.
Right.
So sad to see something I love be used for such evil.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.